السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما مزيدا. Welcome to this episode of Exploring the Quran on Fast FM in Newcastle. And we're going to continue, inshallah ta'ala, exploring in the Quran. And we've reached in this lesson, or the last lesson, to Surah Al-Ma'idah. And we mentioned that Surah Al-Ma'idah, one of the 7 longest surahs in the Quran, that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, whoever takes these surahs, and that from those who memorize them, those who understand them, those who act upon them, all of that can fall into that category. That whoever takes these surahs, that he will be a hibr. He will be from a hibr, who is from the ones who are the scholars of this ummah, inshallah ta'ala. And this surah is one of the 3 surahs in the Quran that started with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. And it's the surah that has the most ayat, the most verses that start with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. And these verses in the Quran, as we mentioned in the last session, there are 89 different verses in the Quran, and they have a very high and special status. The great scholar of the Sahaba, of the most knowledgeable of tafsir, they were Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said about these verses that whenever you hear Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, he said, pay close attention, listen very good. He said, because it's either good that you're going to be called to do, or evil that you're going to be told to stay away from. This surah we started talking about last time, and some of the scholars mentioned, it's called the surah of halal and haram, because it goes into detail of different fiqh issues of the halal and haram, and it started with that of the contracts. And we talked about that, and we reached the second part, or the second area that it discusses, and that is the issue of food and drink, and that which is halal and haram from that. And also in this surah, you're going to see it's going to go into detail and issues of hunting and the slaughtering, the sacrificing of animals as well, and what are the rulings pertaining this. And the second verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned several of the things from the animals that have been made haram for us. The verse started off, Hurrimat alaykum, that it's been prohibited for you. And then Allah mentions about 10 different types of animals which are haram for us. The first of them is al-mayta, dead animals. And then what them, the blood, and the blood that comes out from the animals, this is haram for us. And walahmul khinzir, and the flesh of the swine, وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ, and the meat which has been slaughtered as a sacrifice for others than Allah, وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةِ, and those animals that were killed by strangulation, وَالْمَوْقُوذَةِ, or the animals that were killed by a violent blow, وَالْمُتَرَدِّيَةُ, or the headlong fall, the ones that fell, for example, off of a cliff or what have you, and then it died, we found that the animal dead, that this would not be permissible. And وَالنَّطِيحَةُ, and the ones who have been killed by another animal, by the horns of another animal, وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبْعُ, and those have been eaten by a wild animal. وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبْعُ, the animals that have been eaten by another animal, and by a wild animal. So if a lion or something attacked an animal and we found it dead, it's not permissible for us as Muslims to eat from that. And perhaps you've seen the video that some of the, I believe it was in Ethiopia or Kenya, one of those countries, one of the tribes, where they saw the lions eating from this, and the guys walk in with their knives and they take from the meat themselves. And even the lions were shocked when they saw this. So we look at this as being funny, but would it be permissible for us as a Muslim to eat such meat? No. If the lion had killed it, then it's not permissible for us to eat these types of animals. After the 9th one that Allah mentioned, that was eaten by a wild animal, Allah mentioned an exception to the rule. إِلَّا مَا ذَكَّيْتُمْ, unless you are able to slaughter it before its death. So we find any of these above mentioned animals, except obviously the issue of the khinzir, and that which is dead and all of that. But if you find like the thing that had been strangled or hit by a violent blow, something that fell off a cliff, an animal that hit by the horns of another animal, that one that had been attacked by a wild animal but has not yet died, meaning we find it and it still has life in it, and then we slaughter it before it dies, then this becomes permissible for us to eat. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the 10th thing that which is made haram for us. وَمَا ذُبِحَ عَلَى النُّصُبِ, and that which is sacrificed on stone altars, also sacrificing for any other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are 10 of the things mentioned in this verse. And this verse, and we're not going to go into everything mentioned in the verse, it's so in depth. But something else really amazing mentioned in this verse is what Allah said when He said, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum." And this was sent down to the Prophet ﷺ during Hajjatul Wada, and the farewell pilgrimage. This verse was sent down to him to finish off the religion. It said, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam dina." This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you, and I have approved for you Islam as your religion. A Jewish man came to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu an, and he said, "You have a verse, an amazing verse, which is mentioned in your book." He said that we as the Jews, if we had this book, if we had this verse, we would have made the day it was revealed a day of Eid, a day of celebration. He said, "What verse is this?" And he mentioned this verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum," that today I have perfected your religion for you, wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati, and I completed my favor upon you, wa raditu lakum al-Islam dina, and I have approved for you Islam as your religion. Umar radiallahu anhu, he's saying, we know exactly when it came down and where it came down. It came down in the farewell pilgrimage to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was in that area during the Hajj, and they knew the exact area, the exact time, the exact place, and he said, we know this, alhamdulillah. But what is the real meaning of this, and what we really gain from this is to realize that the religion has been completed, and that anything that is added to the religion after this, it's a form of bid'ah, a form of innovation. This is one of the proofs that the things that people add to the religion when it comes to the aspects of ibadat, of worship, that this will become a form of religion. Because as Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala said, "Ma lam yakun yawma idin dinan, lam yakun al-yawm dina." That whatever was not religion on that day when this verse was revealed, then it's not going to be religion today. So anything that people come and when the affairs of the ibadat, of the worship, they want to add to the religion, thinking that it might be a good thing, that it's not something that's acceptable, it's actually a form, and it will become a form of bid'ah in the religion, even if you had a good intention. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that all of the invented affairs into the religion, that it's a form of bid'ah innovation, وَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ وَكُلُّ ضَلَالَةٍ فِي النَّارِ. And all of the forms of innovation to the religion are a form of dalala, form of astrayness, and all of them will be in the hellfire. May Allah protect us all from the hellfire, Ya Rabbil Alameen. In this verse, a second exception came when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, but whoever is forced out of severe hunger and with no inclination to sin, فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ, that there's no sin upon him, and Allah is Ghafur Rahim. And the second exception was mentioned, that if at the time of hunger, and this is the beauty of Islam, that it shows you all of the aspects you might face. So now these 9 things were mentioned, and then the exception came, then the 10th one came after that. But the exception to these types of animals that were attacked or that were hurt or that were injured by other animals, that if you find them and they have inside, and you find inside that they have that they still have life inside, there's an exception to the rule. Also, second exception: what if we're in a place where we have no food? We're trapped, for example, in the wilderness. We're trapped in the forest, and all we find is a wild boar. We find a pig. Is it permissible for us as a Muslim to eat this or not? Generally speaking, I say no, it's haram to eat it. But I'm about to die of hunger. We've been hunting for 3 days. We're running out of water. We have nothing to eat, and all we keep finding as we're hunting is a wild boar. Is it permissible for me to take my arrow, take my gun, and to shoot it? In this situation, yes, it's permissible. In fact, it becomes wajib. It becomes a compulsory upon me, because as a Muslim, I cannot harm myself. And if it's life or death, then I have to do it. In this case, and he said also, if I were to come and I'm trapped in the wilderness, I'm trapped in the desert, and I found al-mayta, the dead animal, the first one that Allah mentioned, then here we would say yes. We would say that there's an exception, and here for the rule, and there's an exception. There's an exception for the rule that I would be allowed to eat this. Also, and if I were to find something that had died from strangulation, from a violent blow, eaten by another wild animal, and I had nothing to eat, and I was going to die, then in this situation, also it would be permissible for me to eat. And then the verses continue, and if you go like to verse 4, you'll see the issue of what are the rulings of hunting and hunting animals, that what's permissible, how we train them, and what's permissible to eat, and what we must do when we send them to gather the animal, and after they've been trained to get the animal. And this is also going into detail in verse number 4. And then the verse which comes after that in verse number 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he starts off the verse also talking about the issue of food. Al-yawma uhilla lakum at-tayyibat, that today all of the good foods have been made lawful for you. And this is an important principle that, if you recall, we mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes something haram, forbidden for us, he always gives us an alternative. He always gives us something halal and beneficial for us after that. So alhamdulillah, we have we have the alternatives, all the halal alternatives. We mentioned that if we went to the Tesco or one of these big supermarkets that we have in the UK, that it's actually most of the things there for us Muslims are halal, alhamdulillah. And we have a certain section, certain things haram for us, but generally speaking, the majority of things, alhamdulillah, are halal. So this is from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But verse number 5 is going to start focusing on issues of marriage and what is permissible. And another issue of food comes after that, which is the issue of the food of the people of the book. And it starts, where it says, وَالطَّعَامُ الْيَوْمُ أُحِلَّ لَكُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ, that the good foods are halal for you. And then after that, it says, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ وَطَعَامُكُمْ حِلٌّ لَهُمْ, that the food of the people of the scriptures, meaning the Christians and the Jews, that it is permissible for you, and that your food is permissible for them. And then it comes and starts talking about the issue of marriage, what is allowed for you in marriage, and what are the conditions that must be met in order for it to be allowed for you. But before we mention that, as our time is coming to the end of this episode, the fact that this surah starts going in detail about the food of halal and haram, and this is something that we see from the Muslims even till today and throughout history, that they're very keen on striving to only eat that which is halal and that which is haram, and they stay away from that which is haram. This proves to us, and it reminds us, that we have the ability to strive for halal in all aspects of our lives, and that we must, as Muslims, just as we strive to only eat that which is halal. And you see that, and it's absolutely, to be honest, it's absolutely ludicrous in many of our community, in the Western Muslims and around the world, that they will only eat that which is halal. And subhanAllah, you'll find someone who goes out to the nightclub with his girlfriend, and he might even have some alcohol to drink, and then when they go out, he has to look for the halal takeaway. Astaghfirullah. How can I eat from that which is haram? How can I eat from that which is haram? He's out with his girlfriend. He's been drinking alcohol. He's about to go fornicate afterwards. But when it comes to the food, where is the halal takeaway? Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Alhamdulillah, he's got some good where he only eats halal. But look at the mindset. If I only can eat halal and for food that which is halal, then how can I fall into haram in other aspects of life as well? There's something very, very important that we need to focus on. Just as we strive for halal in our food, we need to strive for halal in all aspects of life. And something very interesting, a story I remember, one of the sheikhs, before he became a sheikh, and he was in the UK, and it was a story he told us. We studied together in Medina, and he said that he was debating with one of his colleagues, and his colleague, and he would commit the major sin of going to McDonald's, and this for the biha guys, for them it's just like, this is almost like kufr for many of them. He's like, astaghfirullah, how can you eat that Big Mac? It's haram. And he was saying this at a time when he was far away from Allah. He didn't even used to pray, but he would only eat the biha meat, only halal meat, 100% certified halal, and the other meats, astaghfirullah, haram. But he didn't pray. And many of the Muslims see him as being a non-Muslim, the one who leaves the salat, and that the madhab of the scholars, of the Sahaba and many others of the scholars, that is a non-Muslim, the one who doesn't pray. So, but yet he's only concerned about eating that which is the zabiha meat, that which is halal. Subhanallah al-Azim. So he's sitting and debating with his colleague, and his colleague is telling him, but bro, you don't even pray. You're talking about what I eat, but you're not even praying. The non-Muslim colleague who was there with him listening to this debate, he said, look, I don't want to get involved in your religious affairs. I don't know. But me personally, my personal insight, he said, I think, for Allah, for your creator, for God, that the fact that you pray or don't pray is more important than the type of meat that you eat. And what he's saying is a non-Muslim, his understanding is more correct. This is Islam. And the fact that I eat zabiha meat or don't eat zabiha meat and I don't pray, and not praying is a much more grave sin. But yet you'll find that the Muslims around the world, that the issue of zabiha meat, this is the main thing, this is the most important thing, but they'll fall into all the forms of haram, so all the forms of haram. Therefore, this is a reminder to us in this surah, going in detail about only eating from that which is halal and avoiding all of the types of food which are haram. It's a reminder to us that we must strive to implement this in all aspects, in all spheres of our lives, and not just to the issue of food. And Allah knows best. Allahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Waiting for the brothers. We ended the session.